Hello everybody, thanks very much for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn and I run the services at medcommsnetworking.com. Those are information resources, activity services for people who work in the global MedComms community, by which I mean people who work in and around medical communications, medical education and medical publishing, and indeed anybody who is interested in either that business or in joining that business. So you'll find lots of resources at a site called firstmedcommsjob.com for anyone who wants to learn more about the business and explore career options. So at the moment, one of the things we're doing is we're running these weekly webinars, and that's allowing us to reach all sorts of parts of the world and to involve speakers from all over on all sorts of interesting topics. So today we're delighted to have the guys here from Fishawack, and we're going to talk about their STEPS program and training of medical writers. On that note, I'm simply going to hand over to Diane to kick us off. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'll just share my screen now. I hope everyone can see that. Okay, well, thank you very much, Peter, for the introduction, and thank you all for coming along to hear about medical writer training at Fishawack. So I'm going to kick off today with a little bit of background on Fishawack Health, who we are, and talk a bit about our approach to professional development. I'm then going to hand over to my colleague Susan Brackenridge, who's going to talk about the medical writer training programme in a bit more detail from the trainer perspective. And we're also joined by Anne and Rob, who have been on the training programmes, so are going to give you a good overview on what it's really like to be on these training programmes. So first of all, a little bit about my career. So I'm a medical microbiologist, and I went straight from my PhD into a postdoctoral research position at the Centre for Tropical Veterinary Medicine at Edinburgh University. And I worked for 8 years on African trypanosomiasis. Was very lucky in that I started out looking at it from a molecular perspective. I was able to stay with it right through to being able to take it out into the field. And it was when I was working out in the field that I really got my first proper taste of training. Training up the scientists out in Kenya to use the assay that we developed in the lab in Edinburgh. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, being in Kenya, obviously, but also the training side. So when that contract finished, I took a short break, started a family, moved down to England, and it seemed like a really good opportunity to think about what I wanted to do next in my career. I loved being a research scientist, but the thing I loved most about it was really the writing, the communicating. I published every little result that I got. I put my hand up for every opportunity to present my work. And I wrote reports for grant awarding bodies, even when they hadn't asked for them. So the communication was really the piece I liked best about it. And it wasn't until I moved down to England that I realised I could actually make a career out of that. So I did do a year where I went back into the lab at Oxford University this time. But at the end of that year, I took up a role as a medical writer in a healthcare communications agency called TMG. And it really was a bit of a leap into the unknown, because at that time, there really wasn't much information about what medical communications was. The only way to find out was to take the jump and try it. Whereas nowadays, you've got great resources like the MedComms networking to tell you what MedComms is. But I was very lucky. I found it was something I thoroughly enjoyed. It was challenging, interesting, used the skills that I developed when I was in academia and in research and built on them. So I absolutely loved it. It was a very steep learning curve, but it was a great supportive training environment with some really interesting projects and great clients. So I worked there for 5 years. And while I was there, one of my biggest influences, I guess, and inspirations was Oliver Dennis, who was my line manager, and he set up Fishawack. And I joined Fishawack back in 2003. So I've been there now for 18 years. I started out in the medical writing team, but in my time there, I've been also in the client service team and now in an HR and professional development role, which is where I'm speaking to you from today. So a bit more about Fishawack itself. We started out in 2001, so this year's an important year for us because we are on our 20th anniversary, which is hard to believe. But When I started in 2003, there were 10 people in Knutsford and 3 of us in Oxford. And we were really just a small group of medical communications colleagues and friends with lots of big ideas and lots of enthusiasm. And as the business grew, we recruited in, obviously, but we found we had so much business that we couldn't recruit fast enough to keep up. So we started to partner with other agencies, like-minded agencies in Switzerland and across in the US. Worked with them to help deliver our business, and then invited them to join the Fishawack and became Fishawack Group of Companies. So if we fast forward to 2021, we're now Fishawack Health. So we've continued on that journey of recruitment, of acquisitions and integration, and become one of the largest independent specialist healthcare partners now. We have over 1,000 people in the company, and we're spread across offices in the UK and the US, and people working from home much more broadly, even across the globe. So we've not just grown in size and in location, but we've also brought in a lot of new capabilities and new acquisitions. So our heritage is in medical communications, but we've brought in consulting, creative, marketing and technology skills in the new people that we've brought into the business. So that's good news, obviously, for our clients, because it means we can offer more of a rounded service. But it's also great news for the people that work with us, because it means there are more opportunities, more roles, more pathways to get involved in. So we partner with all of the top 20 pharma companies, and also with a large number of biotech companies, and helping them navigate often their first launches. And this means that we're working across a huge range of different therapy areas, different drugs, including many innovative therapies, precision therapy, cell and gene therapies. And this year's been a particularly interesting year for us, because we've been very privileged to be able to support our clients with their COVID vaccines and with COVID therapies. So lots of experience in the company and lots of opportunities across lots of different therapy areas. So one thing that this does mean, it's a very, very diverse and dynamic environment to come into. So we do appreciate there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to keep up with. So our learning and development is a crucial part of the success of the business and the success of the people in the business, which is why we brought it all together in our supporting training, enhancing professional skills initiative. It's our learning and development journey, and it starts from the minute you join Fishawack until you leave. So from the initial onboarding and inductions, where we orientate people to the business, as soon as you come into the business, you are put straight onto a live account, obviously not on your own, with an experienced account team. And on-the-job training is by far the most interesting and effective way to learn the job. So you'd be aligned to an account that has got people who will be able to mentor and coach you through the daily projects. But also what we do is try and align people to accounts that will be able to match up with some of the experiences they've had previously. So for example, if somebody's worked in oncology, we'll put them onto an oncology account to start with, so that they can build on what they already know. And there's not so many new things to learn at the beginning. It just helps hit the ground running, I guess. But as well as the on-the-job stuff, we run formal training courses. So that's learning the core technical skills you need to do your role, but also developing soft skills, so things like teamwork and time management, that sort of thing. And these sorts of courses and programs are delivered by internal experts at Fishawack, but also by external training partners. And as well as these group sessions that we run, we also have a learning management system that is called Bridge, and that's where we house all our training materials. And so they're available for people to access at any time. so they can look at them when they need them most, and they can refresh on when they need them most. And Bridge has been a really useful tool also for your career management, because you have your own learning space, so you can put whatever training you want into that learning space, but also training coordinators and course organisers and your manager can assign courses that they know will be useful for you in your career development through short-term, long-term, and exploring other opportunities. So another aspect, it's really important that we have clearly defined roles and pathways so that we make sure that we're delivering the right training at the right time. And up till now, I've spoken very generally about training in Fishawack, so I'm going to bring it round to the medical writers now before I hand over to Sue. And this is just an overview of our medical writer programme, pathway, sorry. And it's something that we've developed and defined over the years with the growing needs of the business, but also with the growing needs of the individuals in the business. So in our medical writer pathway, the first 3 stages, you come in as a medical writer, and this is where you develop your core skills, you learn the basics of the job, you get experience across many different therapy areas, clients, project types, really building up your knowledge, expanding into helping to resource accounts, doing a bit of project management, line management. Once you've had a chance to experience all these things, you get to that editorial project leader, you've then got 3 different ways that you can go, depending on your strengths and what you enjoy doing. We find that there are people who really like to concentrate on the science and like to make that the focus of the role, and they go down a scientific director pathway. We have people who really like the internal side, they like to be involved in the training and the resourcing, and the editorial director pathway is the best one for them. And then there are others who really thrive in the client environment, they like growing the business, and the editorial business director pathways is an option for them. So there's lots of opportunity, and for each of these we have bespoke training programs that can support progression. So I'm going to hand over to Sue now to talk a bit about the medical writer and the senior medical writer training in more detail. So over to you, Sue.
Thanks, Diane. Next slide then. Okay. So I'm Susan Brackenridge. I'm the Scientific Services Training Director here at Fishawack. I started my career over about 20 years ago now at a company called TMG. And I was part of a very innovative training program for that time, where you spent 1 month working in the classroom and then 1 month on the job over about 6 months. So I spent a few years at TMG before joining Fishawack, and spent 4 years there. And then in 2008, I decided to become a freelancer. So about 3 years ago, I decided it was time to come back in-house. So I came back to Fishawack as a scientific advisor. But I've always had a really strong interest in training, and so my role has developed in Fishawack during the 3 years I've been back. And so last December, I became a Scientific Services Training Director. So I've really come full circle from being on a training programme and being a trainee to actually being involved in creating training programmes and being a trainer. So next slide, please. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about our medical writers training programs. So these programs are bespoke, so they're either created in-house by our experts, but we also have external partners that we work with that bring their expertise and run programs for training sessions for us. These are tailored to this specific career stage of the writers, and they're flexible. Well, flexible both in terms of the business, but also in what the writers want. So writers can come to me and say, could we have a program on this particular aspect? And then I'll do my best to incorporate that into the program. And they're also, the programs are continually evolving. At the end, we have evaluation form. We can find out what worked, what didn't, what the gaps are, what's needed. And then we are continually changing our programs so we can get the best moving forward. So next slide, please. So at the moment we have 2 different types of training programs. We have the foundation program and the advanced program. The foundation program is for new writers who have been with us for about 3 to 6 months. And the advanced program is for more experienced writers who've been with us for about 18 to 24 months. But these are not set in stone, these dates. It really depends on how well you're getting on and the discussions with your line manager about whether it would be best for you to go on these programs and when. We also have a third program that's currently in development for the next stage of medical writers who are even more senior and further along in their career. So as Diane mentioned, it's not just having these training programs. We have the Bridge online management program. So courses link into the foundation program. So say for the foundation program, we have a session on abstracts. We'll ask you to go and take the abstract course on Bridge, which reinforces your learning, but also gives you more information. And also we have extensive on-the-job training. Mentoring is done by line managers and also by members of your team, and also coaching for individual writers. So line managers come to me and say, oh, my writer has having a difficulty with a particular aspect, can you help them? So for example, last year, somebody came to me and said their writer was having problems with reviewing, and that was stopping them becoming a senior writer. So I worked with that writer to help them, and then we came over that block, and then they were promoted to a senior writer. So next slide, please. So both the programs are about 10 weeks in length. We have 2 to 3 sessions which take place in the afternoons. And at the moment, we're delivering them virtually via Zoom. And we find this works really well. But hopefully when we all come out of lockdown and moving forward, we will go to a more hybrid model. So we'll start face-to-face. But we'll also have lots of virtual training programs. Some of the sessions work okay with a virtual model, but I think they would benefit from being face-to-face, and it's always nice to meet people as well. But most of the courses will still be run virtually because we have lots of offices in the States and lots of offices in the UK. So virtually is really the best way of getting everybody together regularly for each week. Okay, next slide. So these are the objectives of the foundation program. I wanted to make 2 points here really. The first is the idea is really to give you the basic skills you need for a career in medical writing, all your technical skills, a little bit about the pharmaceutical industry as well. But there's another aspect to it in that it's a really great way of getting all the new writers together. So you can sort of form a new writer team, so to speak, and then you can find out if other people are having the same challenges that you have and how to overcome them. And we get a really nice group going together, and it really is quite fun. So next slide, please. So the program is extremely varied, and we just have some examples of the content here. So for example, Fishawack processes. A lot of our new writers come from academia, so they don't really have great insight how the pharma companies work, and also how we work with pharma companies. So we have some training on that, and some of the things there, as I mentioned, technical skills. Next slide, please. So the more advanced program has different objectives, because by this time we assume that you've mastered the basic skills. So the aim really is to help transition you to a more senior role. And so we provide guidance on aspects such as teamwork, working with other people in the team, or working with junior writers. And then we introduce you also to more complex project types. Okay, Diane, next slide, thank you. So again, here is just a brief example of some of the content. As I mentioned, we have teamwork. Other aspects include briefing and reviewing. But one point I wanted to make is that Diane also mentioned about all the opportunities there are in Fishawack to work on projects, not just things like abstracts and posters and slides. So we've introduced you to those projects and how to work on them. For example, the digital world. We had some training the other week on writing for digital projects and how to be involved in working on apps and websites. So this is a key part of the program as well. So that's a brief overview of our 2 programs as they stand at the moment. But I'm now going to hand you over to the people who are really more important in this, and these are the writers who've actually been on these programs. And I'll start by handing over to Robert Bloxham. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so my name's Rob, and I'm one of the medical writers on the team. So I did the entry-level training session. Bit of background about me. As mentioned, a lot of us have academic backgrounds. So I did an undergraduate in biomedical science at Newcastle, and I worked as a research tech for a year before going back into education and doing my master's at Imperial before my PhD in cell signaling and tumour cell biology at the Francis Crick Institute. And basically towards the end of my PhD, I had a few misgivings about working in academia long term, specifically that good and hard work doesn't necessarily give you enough to boost you in your career. So I started thinking about what I really liked doing, and that was comms and presentation and also project-based work generally. So looking around, medical writing really seemed to fit that bill. So I applied for Fishawack, and I've been here since October last year. And I can say so far it has really fit that bill. And so my role so far has been the planning and preparation of mainly primary manuscripts from clinical trial data and other deliverables. But yeah, it's been really enjoyable so far. And in terms of the training program, I mean, a lot of what I'm going to say has been said already, but it really is true. The things I think it achieved really well was building on existing skills that you've picked up from either your, an academic background or a pharmaceutical background. And I learned something at each session that I've since implemented into my daily practices. So it really does set you up with the skills that you need to sort of tackle your core responsibilities as a medical writer. Coming from a different industry, this is new to me. It really achieved that well, I think. And the other thing it achieved well is, it catered for all kinds of backgrounds. And if there was a certain course you wanted a bit more information on, or you weren't so confident in, like Diane Sue have said, the online training platform really does supplement that really nicely. So it really does set you up well for this, certainly starting your career in medical writing. Yeah, that's a big thumbs up from me. So I'll hand over to Anne now, who's one of the senior writers on the team.
Hi everyone, so I'm a senior medical writer at Fishawack. I'll just give you a quick overview of my background. So I studied natural sciences at Cambridge and specialised in biochemistry. And then I did a DPhil in chromosome and developmental biology at Oxford, looking at histone demethylase activity in embryonic stem cells. And during my PhD, I was really lucky because I had the chance to do a science policy internship at the Academy of Medical Sciences. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the chance to sort of get involved in the different projects and do some more extended writing. And also I was involved in an advisory board with experts, which I really found very interesting as well. And so that experience really sort of helped me to start to think about doing medical writing as a career. And so after I finished my PhD, I did a short postdoc just to finish up some of my project work and publish the results from my research. And then I started as a medical writer at Fishawack in October 2019. And I've been a senior writer at Fishawack for about 6 months now. So I'm currently taking part in the Advanced Writer Training Programme, and I've really enjoyed the sort of variety of the different sessions that are on offer. So we've learned from experts within Fishawack, from really diverse teams. So learning about different kind of project types that I haven't been involved in so far, and learning about effective client engagement and that kind of thing has been really, really interesting for me. And what I've really appreciated as well about the training program is that it's specifically tailored to the point that you are in your career. So for me as a new senior writer, I'm taking on more reviewing and briefing responsibilities now. And we've had specific training courses on both of those aspects, which has been really helpful for sort of making that transition to the senior writer role. And even though the courses have obviously had to be virtual this year, I found that they've been really engaging. And it's been nice, for example, to have breakout sessions during the sessions so that you can get to know the other writers in Fishawack and have more in-depth discussions and sort of feedback what you've been talking about to the rest of the group. So I've found that the training course has really helped me as I've transitioned to my senior writer role. So I'd be really happy to take any questions you might have about that, but for now I'll just hand back to Diane.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Rob, and thank you, Sue. So this has been a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and now we're very pleased to take questions from you and have a bit of a deeper chat. But if there are any questions that we don't cover today or that you think of afterwards, please do feel free to reach out to Sue or myself or to Anne or Rob, I'm sure, after this. And also we'd really like to encourage you to have a look at Fishawack's, if you're interested, to have a look at Fishawack Health website, and we have a video on there that speaks to the messages that we've been giving out today and gives you a bit more detail on the career pathways. And yeah, so we'll hand back over to Peter now to run the questions. And thank you.
Excellent, thanks, Diane. Thanks. If we can lose those slides, that was great. Thank you. And then to the members of the audience, if I can just say again, you've got a chat button and a Q&A button at the bottom of your screens, which call up a couple of text boxes. So use those to send in any observations or comments or questions, and we'll weave those into the discussion for the next 10 minutes or so. Can I why not? It's my party. I'm going to ask a blunt question, as it were. So the first thing I'm going to say is, I know, Diane, you and I have had a bit of a chat about these sorts of issues in the past, and I think we slightly disagree with each other. So I'm going to phrase this a little bit. Sort of, I've argued that, you know, it's been interesting from where I sit over the last few years to see so many MedComms agencies like yours who seem to me to be formalizing their training programs, and it's comprehensive as well. And I think that's a very good thing, and it's partly the way that MedComms has evolved over the years. And I think where we've disagreed slightly in the past is you've told me that, you know, well, years ago there was still very good training, you know, and people were giving each other good training, but there wasn't the sort of the training program type of activity that is going on now, which I think has been an interesting aspect of the last few years. But a sort of blunt question. Do you, because you said that the training is split between external people coming in and internal, but I get the sense that most of it is internally driven. Is it because there isn't a lot of training out there for people that you've had to sort of develop your own training? Or is it just because you just think you're the ones who can train people best? You see what I'm sort of saying? I'm just interested in the sort of the environmental type aspect as to what's behind developing the training program the way you have. Is that a fair question?
Yeah, I'll pick this one up first, but any one of my colleagues can chip in whenever. I think the reason that we've gone, we have far more external trainers now than we ever did before. Okay. We used to be, we'd sometimes send people off when we were a smaller company. We'd sometimes send people off on an external training, but it wasn't the norm. Whereas now I'd say we do rely a lot more heavily on our external training partners. Okay. Part of that is because we've got to know them a bit better, and they've got to know us, and it's still very bespoke. Even when we're working with external trainers, it's still a very bespoke piece of training that we're putting together. But I think we like using our internal experts, partly because it's they enjoy doing the training. It's good development for them. It's good to help them get known, you know, in amongst the teams. There's a lot of pluses in doing it yourself. And, you know, I'm afraid there is a budget. There is a training budget, and we have to be mindful of that. So it's a mixture. I think we like to mix it about. Sometimes it's better to have an external person come in, and people listen more intently to somebody who's come from externally. So but other times, the internal piece is important as well. Getting to know who the experts are within the company as it gets bigger, it helps if you've got these people doing the training as well, so people know where they can reach out to in the company. So I think that having that blended approach is really important.
Sorry, and again, just to push a little bit further on this point, you're talking, I think I'm understanding correctly, you're talking in terms of external experts coming in to train your people, rather than you putting your people on external open courses. I suppose what I'm trying to lead up to is the question which I get asked all the time. Is there a course out there on medical communications or medical writing in MedComms, or that we can access?
Yeah.
Or so just talk a little bit to that, because what you're talking about is very much a bespoke program driven by your needs, and you're bringing people into that. You're not saying that there are courses out there that you can put people on, presumably because they aren't there. Are we agreeing on that? And as a general point for people, particularly those who want to come into the business, are we agreeing that there aren't very many courses out there that you can take which magically give you some sort of qualification to come in? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. There is occasionally, people will occasionally go on a specific course, and then we'll ask them to come back in and train everybody else. But there's not an awful lot out there. No, it's certainly not in medical writing side of things. There aren't many options for sending people out externally.
Okay, and as I say, I think that's a positive message to put out. There's a positive message in there that the agencies are responding to that and doing so much training themselves and so on. And Rob and Anne, I suppose then to you guys, as people going through the system, you've sort of already said it, but just to reinforce that, is that seen as by you guys as one of the real positives of working within MedComms, that there is that emphasis on training in that way?
Do you want to go first, Anne? Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
No, I would say definitely, absolutely, and particularly, for someone coming from academia, you do need that sort of introduction to what medical writing is all about, and it's completely essential, I would say, when you're starting as a writer.
Yeah, 100% echo that, and as well as the training course, I think Diane mentioned this in her slides, the on-the-job training as well. There's the support in your team that you get as well, so you're never left out in the cold, if you will, basically.
Yeah. And it's always been on the job training, but the formal program type stuff is I think has evolved, and I think is good for many people anyway. Just to cover off one obvious point that before someone asks it, we're talking about medical writing today, but your STEPS program, the Bridge program, that's basically across the business, isn't it, for account management staff, client services, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And one of the questions I wanted to ask was, as medical writers in MedComms, Fishawack covers a number of different areas of the business beyond MedComms, quite marketing orientated businesses and so on. Do you mix up writers, from MedComms and the more marketing aspects and so on? Is that a positive thing, or do you tend to focus in on, the MedComms writers are trained in this way, and the more marketing copywriting types are trained in a different way? Susan, I guess that's a question for you.
Yeah, we tend to focus just on the medical writers for these two programs. Your traditional routine, you start, your posters, but your abstracts, your slides. But that's not to say as you become more experienced, there's so many opportunities in Fishawack. If you want to start to, some of the advertising aspects of it or the marketing, if you want to get involved in that, just let your line manager know, and then they'll look into various. Moving forward, if you are interested in that, then we're trying to give you the opportunity to do that. So you come in the more traditional role, you learn your trade, and then you can move within the company as you get more experience.
Okay, but in terms of the training courses, are you actively sort of mixing those different sorts of writers up?
No, this is pure traditional MedComms.
Okay, all right.
Although, sorry, I will sort of interject here. We haven't, because the integrations are quite new. We have had one of our writers from our creative agency came on the MedComms writing course as well. So it's not that it's closed off to them. It's that at the moment it's definitely focused on the needs of the medical communication side, because it is slightly different. But there's going to be a lot of overlap, and these courses are open to anybody in the company that would benefit from them, and that will include writers. There will be some courses that the writers in the more creative side of the business will benefit from, and vice versa. So the intention is that it's going to be, we can mix and match, and we'd like to do that more going forward.
Okay.
And we're already doing a lot of our other training. So the trainings that we run, for example, for our client service people, involve client service people from across the whole business, and so it's very inclusive because it is fully integrated. It's just that MedComms is still a specialist part of the company. Exactly. There are particular training needs in there that perhaps other places don't have. So it does tend to be, predominantly MedComms people that are on it.
Okay. And Sue, to come back to you, I mean, from your position, the last year, presumably, I mean, you sort of said that the training has been a bit of a mix of face-to-face and online, and it would always have been developed that way anyway. But presumably the last year has accelerated the online side dramatically. Have you any observations on maybe the challenges or opportunities and benefits of training online versus not? See what I mean?
Yeah, well, traditionally we've done it face-to-face. We didn't have any virtual training, and we were thinking of around about the April time, we were thinking about running some sort of training program. And then of course with everything that happened, then we decided, well, you had to do it virtually. And so then it sort of snowballed from there, and we realized it was just a great way of running the programs, to do it virtually, to get in everybody from all the different companies in the States and all the different offices, and it's worked really well. But as I said before, some of the courses, they do work okay on Zoom, but they would be better face to face, and so it's always nice to talk to people. So that's why moving forward we'll probably move to more of a virtual course, but with some face-to-face elements in it as well, but predominantly virtual. But no, it's been really good, and everybody within the company, and you know, everyone's been on, it's really enjoyed it, and I keep getting emails of saying, can I have my writer on the course please, you know, so it's really taken a life of its own. I think Anne and Rob would agree. Yeah,
everyone's nodding at you, so
yeah. It's always good.
Always an interesting question, and Matt's asked it, is you said, I think it would have been Di that said that promotions are based on merit and going through these sorts of training courses. How do you measure people's success in this training? Have you got any insights there? Are people, I suppose what I'm trying to get at is the course designed, there's a series of tick boxes, you have to go through a series of modules, you have to pass, you have to whatever, there's pass failure type opportunities, there's scoring systems, there's whatever. I mean, how do you measure that sort of thing, or isn't it like that at all? Who wants to answer that? Sorry, I'm looking at Sue and Di for answering that one.
No, it's just it's very relaxed, the program.
Like okay.
It's not tick boxes and you have to pass or we will shack you at the end or anything like that. So no, it's just, you know, we want to support our writers, we want to give them the training, we want the writers to get to know each other. So that's more the sort of the culture of it, really. So yeah, but then I guess the way we measure it is we at the end we're going to have some evaluation forms and ask to see whether the writers' work has improved over the time, or whether the writers feel, you know, they're doing things better, more efficiently. So that's sort of how we gauge whether it's working, rather than officially tick boxing things.
Okay. We've got a question coming in. There's a couple of questions around the same sort of topic, I think, in terms of transitioning from academia to medical writing, I guess. I think it's all coming in from anonymous, actually. Can you speak to why transitioning to medical writing was a steep learning curve, and specifically on the knowledge skills gap between transitioning academics? What have you got? And I think this one's saying, what is the missing secret sauce they learn to become medical writers? And just pick up on that a little bit, because you sort of kicked it off with what you said. You know, why is it so different? What is the differences between going from academia into this? Just a couple of minutes on that.
I think certainly for I'm amazed I can still remember this, it was so long ago, but I think it must have been such a traumatic kick when I first realized that I'd been in research for a long time, I'd published really widely, but I hadn't appreciated the difference between publishing your own work and then publishing work when you were in a medical communications environment. So that was a kind of steep learning curve. You kind of thought you knew it, but you did up to a point, but you didn't. All the other things that go along with it, the fact that your work gets reviewed by so many different people, that whatever you put in is going to be altered so much. Not necessarily because you've done a bad job, but just because there are many aspects you've got to be thinking about when you're writing for somebody else or for a particular product that has its own communication messages that need to go out, and they have to go out at particular times. It's all very organized, whereas when you are producing your own work, you don't have any of these constraints at all. You're just writing what you want to write and what you really know about. Whereas when you come into medical writing, you've got to become an instant expert. You're not given the time to do 3 years worth of research to know it inside out before you write it. So that sort of thing, getting that confidence to be able to write at that level when you don't have the same background information and knowledge, but also being able to take that feedback from other people and be able to work it into your work without taking offense, and you know, and recognizing that it's turning it into what it needs to be. So yeah, that to me, that was a big wake-up call. And also the number of different types of communication there were, because I just knew about abstracts, posters and publications. First job I was given to do when I went into medical writing was something called an advertorial. I'd never even heard of it. And it was for a hotel magazine, and it was about hepatitis A and B vaccination. And it was just a piece that was, they called it an advertorial, but it's like an advert, but it had proper scientific information in it, and it was all referenced. So there are all these things out there that you didn't even know existed. And I say it's a steep learning curve, but it's absolutely fascinating. You know, it's brilliant. It's a great learning curve.
Okay.
Get to the top of the mountain.
Okay, Rob, you're the most recent in. What would you concur with all that? Have you got any sort of particular points? How have you found the transition?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is a transition. I think it depends if it's like what you really want to do. I mean, I decided maybe halfway through my PhD that comms and presentation and sort of, yeah, the amalgamation of scientific information was something that I enjoyed and thought I was good at. So I think if those are the sort of things that resonate to you, like Di says, the transition, the learning curve is enjoyable rather than tough. Because I mean, it is exactly true. I think one of my first projects was looking at umbilical cord care in Kenya, and obviously that like had nothing to do with anything I'd done during my PhD. So, you know, it was daunting because it's like, oh, exactly like Di said, you've got to become an expert, but I think the sort of the review rounds that you do have with the experts are really helpful. You know, they're aware that you're there to support the work, the development of the work. So they're there for input on things that you might not be so sure on. And yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. You get exposed to all this great scientific stuff. And I think if you enjoy that sort of aspect of work, then you'll find the transition, I won't use the word easy, but enjoyable. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and you're a bit further into it, but one of the things people often say on the medical writing side is just they never stop learning. And you know, would that be a fair summary? Would you say the similar sort of comment?
Definitely,
you know,
for me so far. Yeah,
okay.
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, obviously you get a bit more used, for example, to the process of developing a manuscript or an abstract, but there's always sort of, you're working with new experts, learning new things, getting involved in new projects. So yes, definitely constantly learning on the job.
Okay. And just to wrap it up, because wrap up the recording, but Sue, maybe just a comment from you in terms of, I think I'm right in saying you were talking about, you've got your 2 modules at the moment, there's another one coming for the more advanced people, but just to wrap this up, what's the future of steps, as it were? What are your plans for the next, I don't know, the coming years, as it were? How do you see it developing?
I think it's just going to develop with the needs of the business. Maybe you know, the world is going digital, virtual, so that's probably more aspects we'll cover in the future years. Yeah, and so broaden out as the company's integrating, as Diane mentioned, broadening it out.
Okay. All right. Look, I've got an eye on the clock because we're a bit late as usual. I'm afraid I always just get into the conversations and let them run on a little bit. So for the purpose of the recording, I'd like to sort of stop here. Those of you who are listening to us, don't run away because we can carry on talking to the top of the hour. And there's a couple of questions I'd like to pick up in that bit before we close at the top of the hour. So I hope I can say on all your behalves, you're all very happy to hear from people via LinkedIn is the easy way of doing it. If anybody in the audience or watching the video later on wants to just reach out via LinkedIn, or you gave your email addresses, Diane, Sue, I know, within the presentation. So thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to the audience for joining us. I'm just going to, as I say, wrap this up from the recording point of view. And what we do these days is always give a little bit of a wave. So if anybody out there is interested, watching this and interested in what we're doing, come to medcommsnetworking.com, where everything that I'm doing is laid out. Anybody misses the webinars or wants to catch up on previous webinars and stuff, there's now 300 videos at NetworkPharma TV. So there's loads of activity going on there. And anyone who's specifically interested in joining MedComms as a business, First MedComms medcommsjob.com provides loads of information about career opportunities and what we do and so on. So lots and lots of information. I'm always here if I can help, but thank you to the speakers, the panelists, who are all happy to hear from you as well. So quick wave and I'll stop the recording, but thank you very much, guys. Take care. Bye.